Ask, Don't Tell, everyone, the show where we bring in a lot of experience. The show where we show you and teach you that most people that care about business, life, sales, getting to yes, whether it's executive coaching, it doesn't matter what industry you are. If you're building spaceships, I don't care what you're doing. You literally live in a world where you care about people, you ask the right questions, and you help and guide people into making better decisions. So that's what Ask, Don't Tell is all about. And really, it's about just not being a jerk. You can do all that in this world without being a jerk. And we have a wonderful guest, very lovely person, which I know is going to bring us some great stuff. Beth Masterman is the founder and president of Masterman Executive Coaching. And welcome, Beth.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Pleasure to be here.
All right, awesome. So if I kind of say something wrong, just correct me. I'm wrong all the time on the show, so it's okay.
All
but
right.
but according to my understanding, this is why I'm so excited to have you on the show. You're a professional coach who digs deep into leadership, communication, and the human experience. This is what I love, that we're going to have a great conversation today. The human experience of influence. And, I'm sure we're going to have some great topics, but you're really also going to sharpen our asking probably skills, and helping navigate how to be a great, a great leader, a great communicator without having to pressure a bunch of people. So let's get to work here. Beth, tell me a little bit about, how did you get started in this? Like, how did you go from your past life to executive coaching, to what you're doing now?
Well, it seemed very disjointed along the way, but like anything, when it's right, you can look back on your life and see how all the pieces fit together, why every turn, every success, or every failure, misstep really contributes to the richness of what you provide for people when you get to the right place professionally. And so I'm an attorney. I was an assistant district attorney. I also worked in politics. I was general counsel for a state senator. I did lobbying. I also have a master's in psychology. My focus was at the time on mostly groups, and a dark topic, family violence, focusing on, what makes it so difficult for people to leave those toxic situations. And even though I'm not dealing right now with family violence, I do deal with a lot of professionals that are in very toxic situations and they don't leave. Um, and so I work with folks like that to get back in touch with what really matters most to them, who they are, and to find the place in their life, where they're comfortable. And so it's really been a long and winding road, which has provided me with the ability to take my coaching sessions to uh, some pretty meaningful places with my clients.
Okay, so I mean, just from the get go, you come from a world of experience in different, really from different backgrounds, whether it be
Yes.
government or lobbying or the corporate. So you come with a lot of experience. At what point? Because I do want to dig. How do you go from that to say, hey, I'm going to be, an executive coach? And first thing I want to do is, a lot of people don't really know what that means, because there's
Hmm.
business coaching, there's life coaching, there's executive coaching, there's corporate coaching, there's consulting. So I think
Right.
one of the first things that we need to say is, okay, what is executive coaches like? Why do people actually come to you?
I love that question because I've thought about that.
Hmm.
What I have discovered is that it doesn't really matter what label is on the door. Is it wellness coaching? Is it sales coaching? Is it business coaching, executive coaching, leadership coaching, nutrition coaching? Whatever it is, the sign attracts the customer, attracts the client. Oh yes, I'm an executive. I need executive coaching. Or I'm a leader and I'm struggling with my team. Or, how do I make my business better? Business development. And what I find that is if the rapport is on, that behind that door they're human beings, and our
Right.
struggles are very, very similar. And although that might be the leading label of what they need, behind that, we're all human beings struggling to grow and develop and to be well. So executive coaching is for the higher levels in companies. A classic executive coaching engagement would be that I would be hired by a company to work with their high potential employees or their leaders, or I'm hired by the CEO or the CFO or the C-suite to help them with their leadership issues. So it's about, it's about your life at work. That to me is a very broad definition. My psychology background enables me to talk with people about anything they bring in the room. And the question is, so how does that affect you at work? And that forces the person to think of themselves in the role where they have to function as an executive and function as a leader.
Okay. So one of the things that I really enjoyed that you said is that, and I agree with you 100%. Like, you can put all these labels on different types of coaching, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, the principles of a lot of different coaching, regardless of what you call it, are going to be very, very similar. Like I could call myself a life coach and really help someone who's an executive, right? Just because they're maybe their life or what, like you said, it carries on over and maybe they're just at a disbalance. But I could also be a sales coach and understand something, I understand a lot of business and then all of them I'm a business coach. But then I could be hired by an executive that says, and so I think putting titles on it sometimes is misleading because really what you said is you're just kind of helping people. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you call yourself. You're helping people. You're helping human beings overcome obstacles, challenges, become better human beings, become better at business, become better at sales, whatever it may be. And so with you, Beth, different coaches, regardless of what industry they're in, they have some sort of system or some sort of solution, or they've created something that kind of makes them a little bit different. So, for example, for me, it's the sales, the closing intelligence, the 5-step process on how to get people to say yes in life and business. For you, it might be something that came from a book, or maybe it came from experience, or came from a step-by-step process that you have. So, what is that solution that Beth provides that makes you different or sets you apart, or that you actually go in and do? Is it a foundation? Is it something that is kind of a step by step, or are you going in and saying, okay, let me just look at every of the situation that I'm working with, and from my toolbox of 10, 20, 30 years of experience, I'm just pulling out these different tools every time? What is kind of your strategy when you're helping these executives? What is that
Hmm.
foundation, the solution that you're providing?
I don't have a turnkey solution
Okay.
because people aren't really turnkey. And I try to learn about how that person is challenged through listening to them talk about their company, their business, their feelings, their challenges. And then I go from there. But what I have found out over the years is that people are struggling with a certain handful of issues, difficult conversations, the ones you don't want to have, and they start avoiding them. And then the more complex or dysfunctional a company is, the harder it is to have those several conversations. So I have a formula for difficult conversations. If somebody comes to me saying that's the issue, I have a white paper. We'll go through one or two coaching sessions around the approach that's completely repeatable to difficult conversations, and then I'll give them a white paper at the end. Listening, active listening, that everybody in leadership pretty much knows it's important to listen. But listening and hearing, as you know, are very different things. And learning how to be comfortable with silence. That's part of it's a tool, but it's also it's a challenge for people. They feel overly responsible for making sure there's no awkwardness. They feel awkward, somebody else feels awkward, but how do you make silence your friend? How do you use it to get closer to your goal with people? So it really depends. Delegation is another one where leaders who are very competent just don't want to waste the time explaining how to do things. So they end up doing it all. And there are two ways to fail. You can over delegate, you can under delegate. So I take them through the very clear model of delegation and how to do it successfully each time. But I'm not going to offer that to somebody who doesn't tell me through my coaching sessions with them that delegation's a problem,
Okay.
right? That's how I do it. I have a lot of different tools,
Mm-hmm.
but the relationship is organic, and the topics we go into are directly from my client.
Okay. So you kind of took me right into where I knew you were gonna. So you seem to me like someone that has, like you said, you have a lot of different tools. So if someone's struggling with hiring the right people, you can go there because you have that experience, and you can go there, right? If someone, even if someone tells you, hey, I'm not performing well at home, because of the things that are going on at home,
Right.
you are a very, because there's a lot of one dimensional, consulting or coaching or business coaching or executive coaching. What I'm hearing from you is you are not one dimensional. You're not saying, hey, I will help you if you have this situation or that situation. Now, you may not be an expert in everything, but at the end of the day, you have so many experience and tools that you can probably help people and get them better in just about anything. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
a really high level, super high level executive coach does. So let
Can I
me,
respond? Can I respond to
yeah,
that
yeah,
for
yeah,
one thing?
yeah, yeah.
In the phrase that I've used, the human experience
Mhm.
of leadership, what goes into that is that you have to learn how to manage up, right? How do I deal with a leader who either intimidates me or I'm invisible to, or who I get along with but's really demanding. On the other hand, sometimes you're the leader. How do I deal with my direct report who is showing up late or is yelling at their admins? So it's either, what's the experience of having a boss that causes you distraction and difficulty, and what's the experience of being a boss? So
Yeah.
it's both sides of the coin. And to do that, yes, it's nuanced, and I have the ability to really connect with my client. And it's a strange thing. I used to think it was just um, I used to think that maybe no, it wasn't real, but I've come to learn that my ability to really walk with my clients, to feel what they're feeling and be in the session with them, as them, together.
Hmm.
um, I don't know, it's something that I think I do really well, and it helps people just relax and be themselves. And together, we talk about some pretty um, difficult stuff
Hmm.
in a tactical way, a strategic way.
Well, I don't. I'm thinking that, and as you're saying that, is like, and if I go back to say, you're ultimately you're helping human beings, and you're connecting with them in a way that you're basically saying it's a gift, and which is a gift, by the way. But at the end of the day, for you to do what you do and helps people in just about anything that they're going through, it kind of goes back to that human experience of, all right, what am I discovering from this? I don't think you can do what you do without asking questions. I think that's
It's
impossible.
all
Yeah.
questions. It's all
So
questions, all
yes,
open-ended questions.
right. So and that's what in ask don't tell, we say, okay, stop talking, start listening, start asking. If you ask the right questions, you get the right information, regardless of whether it's sales, leadership, customer service. It doesn't matter. Ask the right questions, uncover what's on the other side, and you can get them to take certain actions because they're the ones wanting to take it. So I'm thinking that you have to be you, Beth, in order for you to go in at that level and kind of find what it is that they need and then help them. there's no way that you're doing that going in and saying, "Hi, I'm Beth. This is how I'm going to help you because I know this and I know that and this is what." There's no way. You have to be a
Can't do
master.
that.
Right. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, how do you go in there and really have those deep conversations? Do you have, I mean, is that training that you had? Is that just like a gift? You're really good at asking questions and connecting with them? Because what I want to hear from you is a little bit more of something that our audience can take home today. Like, how does Beth ask these great questions? How does she connect with people? Did she learn it? Is it a skill that she has, or does she use a special framework? Just anything that you could help us that would say, wow, if I kind of do that, then I can get really good at asking questions because Beth does that. Any
Yeah.
way that you do it?
I didn't realize it at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but when I was a prosecutor, all I did was ask direct examination. It's not cross examination, too, but in direct examination, where were you last night at 8 o'clock? Who else was with you? What is it that you ordered at the bar? How many drinks did you have?
Beth, you're freaking me out. I'm scared. Let me tell you, it's so
That
good. This is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I want. See, everything has a reason. There's a reason why
is
you're
a
so good
reason.
at it, right? You didn't just make this. Is the point that you didn't just make this up. You weren't
No.
sitting in your closet and said, "Huh, I'm going to create an executive coaching program where I ask great questions, I uncover, and then no, there's a
Wait, you're
reason."
giving me too much credit. You're
No,
giving
no,
me
no,
too
no.
much
But
credit
that's what
because
I
that's
no, but that's the point that I'm trying to do with Ask Don't Tell. It's like people are like, well, if you ask the questions that no one else is willing to ask, you're going to find out things that no one else knows. So what we're about to discover is your past and how that past relates to you being so powerful in what you do. But it isn't just something you made up. It's something that comes from a certain background. So that's what I want to hear. Keep going.
okay. So that I didn't realize I had that secret weapon. And when I was trained as a coach, so I have a certificate as an executive coach. And what they teach you in coaching is to ask questions. Because in coaching, it's a relationship of equals. And you, Oscar, you're the expert on you. You're a successful man, right? You're the expert of you. You're the expert on sales. You're struggling with something, but I'm not the expert. You are. And by asking the questions, and every answer a client gives, within that answer is the next question. If I keep asking you the right questions and refrain from giving you my opinion, until you are totally tapped out, then you'll provide the answer that is right for you, sustainable for you. If I tell you what to do, you're going to do it to please me because we like each other and you want to do a good job, um, but you won't keep doing it. If we discover something that really works for you, it will be self reinforcing, and you will make the shifts necessary to shift your life in the way that you want to. So that's what the power of questions does. And because I've seen it work, I've seen people come to the same conclusion that I may have been thinking, and they grow. So, for example, how do I do that? If I ask a question and somebody says, I don't know what to do, just tell me, Beth, what should I do? And I'll say to them, let's come up with 5 options. I'll give you the first one. You can keep doing what you're doing because on some level you're choosing that. You're choosing that behavior. You give me the next 3, and if you don't say what I'm thinking, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. And what that does is it allows the client to exercise that thinking without any kind of barriers. They've got to come up with 3. And they may get the right answer or the answer that I think is the best, but I don't know that it is the best for that person. So I refrain. I don't deprive them of the opportunity for developing the ability to click through different options, vet different options in their mind, and then choose the one that's best. And that's a skill. That's
Right.
a skill.
So, do you, when you do, and again, we're getting in some really good stuff because I think that our audience is going to learn a lot from you and a lot about why it's so powerful you do what you do. Like, when you were asking me where were you at the bar, and I'm like getting nervous. I'm just like, but at the end of the day, like it comes from a training.
Right.
Like none of me, you, none of us just are self-made and just made ourselves, all of a sudden, hey, I know our
No.
experience in life, me, like I've been doing direct sales and transactional sales and solution sales for literally 30 years of my life. That's why I didn't just make
Yeah,
this stuff.
and you're only 35 years old, right?
Well, I'm 49. I'm just well preserved. No, but anyway, we're getting off track here, Beth. Getting off track. So when I teach people, I tell so this there is a point to what I'm going to say. When I teach
Okay.
people, I say, look, I don't care what industry you're talking to. I don't care what they're selling. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I have a framework where if you're going to be asking questions to the other end, the customer that you want to sell them something, like the questions change, right? Because as you said, when they answer you a question, instead of you thinking of what you're going to say, you're actually thinking of the next question because you're wanting to dig deep. So first of all, first thing they listening, not interrupting. And what you said is not giving your opinion, but in the sales world, I call it not pitching. So when you're doing discovery and you're digging deep, you're not pitching, right? You're not trying to sell, just like you're not trying to give your opinion. But I say, look, there's four things that you really need to uncover in all your line of questioning if you're in the sales world. You know, why someone needs help, right? Why
Mm-hmm.
your solution, which is kind of these questions that I ask you, why people come to you, why your solution, why you, and why today. If you can get people to explain to you or tell you what they're thinking about, why they, why you, why they need help, why your solution or why their solution, why your company or you or why, but anyway, the point is there's a framework there, and I know I'm botching it all up because the point isn't for me to go through that. If you want more information on that, read my book Closing Intelligence, called the Four Whys.
I read your
Okay.
book
I take
before
you
we
to the
met.
Four Whys. I know I botched the
Four
whole thing.
Whys.
It's actually very powerful, but it's called the Four Whys. But that's not the point of this. The point is that I have a framework to asking those questions, right? And all my questions are based around that. So for you, Beth, when you ask questions, are you just kind of, I mean, do you have a certain framework, or is it just from like what you learned back as a prosecutor? Or are
Yeah.
you really just kind of making these questions up as you go, and you're that good and you're that skilled that you need no framework?
Yeah. Well, the framework is pretty embedded in
Mhm.
who I am at this
Okay.
point. It really is. But it was interesting, your four whys, because once somebody agrees to be in the coaching engagement with me, what I say to them is, hey, it's too late for why.
Right.
It's too late for why. You could keep trying to figure out why this isn't working, why you're not getting along with that person, why you're bored, why you're tired the minute you walk into, why do I have to deal with this issue again? I say it's too late for why. You got to change why to what. Now, coaching is a very action oriented type of intervention. It's about where are you now? Let's look at the facts on the ground. How you got there is where all the Sturm and Drang is, right? Oh, I made that decision, or I said that. Doesn't matter. What are the facts on the ground today? Where we go from here,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So most of my questions are what questions.
Right.
And so, very broadly, I'm always listening for how I can ask the next what question. Concrete, actionable, fact based.
Yes. So that's really powerful, and I don't want to lose that because we're describing two different processes here, but they're both so powerful. So, for example, if Beth, you were selling your services to a new CEO, and that new CEO said, "Hey, will you come in and have a conversation to me?" Like my four whys are the four whys of, okay, why do you need help? Why,
Yes.
that comes into there. So the four whys that you've read about are very powerful in the sales funnel. Now, when you're doing this executive coaching, you're no longer in the sales funnel. I mean, you're always
Right.
kind of, yeah, you're always kind of selling it like in my world, but you're not. I mean, you're actually now digging deep as a psychologist. What is it? You're digging deep. So you're no longer trying to uncover the why, or you are, but you're also trying to
Yeah.
uncover the what do we need to
Right.
change. What? And so I think that's really powerful because there's people listening to this show that say, okay, well, I'm not in that sales cycle. I'm kind of in BD where
Yep.
you're already our client and I need to uncover more. Well, what you just mentioned is super powerful because then it doesn't really shift into the why questions. It shifts into the like, what is it that that you're doing now that we could be doing differently that could help you succeed more. So the what questions, I agree, are super powerful. I think that's good stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And that is the framework. Um, I have to catch myself often
Mm-hmm.
if I start asking why or I ask too many hows. That's tactical. The what seems to get at most of the inner motivation and direction.
Good.
Um, so yeah, and it brings people back to to the
Dude,
reality.
you can use my four whys to get more clients, but then when you have more
Yes.
clients, don't do it. Use your whats because I'm sure it's working
No,
beautifully.
there's definitely a good place for why. And I think
Yeah.
you're right. Um, and it's funny, your final question of why today, that is the most challenging one for my sales cycle because a coach is supposed to wait until the person chooses, till they choose me, because you have to have that connection, that sort of why, why choose Beth? Oh, I don't know. She seemed to be, it just worked. It's that intangible thing. And it's really hard to force that.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody says, "Can I check your references?" You know, this happened recently, and while I was listening to your book, they said, let me, could you give me a few references because this is highly confidential. I want to, just talk to people about how you were with that. And I thought, my past clients are pretty valuable. I don't want to bother them.
Yeah.
But I, instead of like using, as you said, using it as another way to continue the conversation, I said, okay, I asked permission, I gave her the names. She never checked them.
I
She
Which
never checked them.
is exactly that I said that
Right,
happens in the book.
exactly, exactly,
It's
exactly.
exactly what I said that happens in the book. They ask you, but it's just an excuse. It's just to
It's an
stall.
excuse.
It's just so if you say, look, besides the fact that you want to check our guests, who I work, is there any other reason why we couldn't just start? Most people, a lot of people will say, you know what? It's just an excuse. Let's just get to work.
Yes, absolutely. And I think because of what you wrote, I'm going to have to think about again how to convince them that I am the right person if I'm feeling it. If I'm feeling I can really help them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I thought that was a really good part of your four whys in a sales funnel.
Right.
Yeah, it
Right.
was
Right.
good.
Right. Well, I've had people when they've said, "Well, can we check?" I'll say, "Look," and I'll be flat out. And so if you're listening, I'm about to give you something that you can use today. I'll say, look, I've been doing this for 2 decades, and here's the reality. Most people that sit with me, they know right then and there if they want to work with me or not. And if you don't want to work with me, that's fine.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is a lot of people will give an excuse not to move forward because they are afraid to move forward. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
I will give you what you need if that's what you really need for us to move forward. But let me ask you this. Do you really need that for us to move forward? Or is it just an excuse or an objection that you're using for us not to move forward? And so you basically have turned it on them. And I have had a lot of people, I've closed a lot of deals without them saying, you know what? Because you're telling them what they already know and you're speaking from the heart and you're saying, what this guy's doing is kind of a little bit different. He's not trying to fight me. He's just saying, look, this is probably an excuse. And I've had people say, honestly, I'm not going to call them. So can you do this for me instead? Yes, I can. Because no one wants to call a perfect stranger and say, hey, what do you know about Beth? Is she great? What?
Right.
And then I'll say something like, and even if I did give you that information, do you think I'm going to give you the information of somebody that's going to speak bad about me? So like, you're
So
just
what's the
asking me,
point?
yeah, you're just asking me for something that's honestly a waste of both of our time. So, besides the fact that you want to talk to someone else, is there any other reason that's keeping you back? And that's what you're describing, Beth. They might say, you know what? Nothing. It's just me. Yes, I am giving you an excuse. So good stuff. All right. All right. So I'll get off my soapbox there for a second now. All right. What's the biggest, what is, I'm going to keep going because I think we're having a great conversation. What is the biggest challenge that you face? Not in the sales, not in the sales cycle, because you go in there, they say, hey, I want to work with you. You start working with an executive coach. You go in there, you start asking the questions. What is the challenge that you face? Because not everyone's going to play along. Maybe they do once they've hired you, or maybe they got hired by the company for you to work with them and they're not that open
Hmm.
to doing it. So what, I don't know, what's the biggest challenge that you face when working with high level executives when you go in there and start being Jedi Master asking your questions?
Yeah. When I get to the higher level, and people really value their time, they're supposed to come to each session with a topic. Every session begins the same way. How do you want to use our time together? I speak with my clients for an hour.
Hmm.
They can, if they have a short session, they can, leave earlier, but it's unusual. So an hour, and then 15 minutes of debriefing. So the session itself is the same. How do you want to use our time together? What's the biggest challenge about that for you? So when a client comes ready with an issue, I have a board meeting I have to prepare for. That the head of marketing is making everybody crazy. I'm afraid I have to fire her. I don't know how to deal with that. So they have issues. When they come to the session with issues, we make real progress.
Hmm.
Sometimes, at least if they come with an issue, we peel that back and find that really isn't the issue at all. It's something else.
Hmm.
But when they come ready to talk, it's great. The hardest clients are the ones that expect me to do all the work. And I'm, fishing and fishing for a hook. And it's like they want me to perform some kind of a magic, but I
Hmm.
can only work with what they give me. I had one client who was extremely introverted. His responses to me were very crisp, and anytime we had like a good moment, he'd withdraw from it. And I learned later on that he had some real anger management issues. And one time he exploded. I asked him a direct question. He did not like it. And he
Hmm.
exploded. We got through the session, and I didn't know if he'd ever call me again. But he did. And we were able to talk about how his anger shows up.
How do you uncover that? You mentioned something right now that it's like, okay, if they come with an agenda if they want to work with, yeah, that's easy because you can kind of just dig a little bit further into that and ask the right questions and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, not give your opinion until at the end you've dig enough, you've got all your discovery, you've got all your guns ready, then you tell them, hey, you give them the solution. That's no different than if you're listening to this and you're in sales or in business development or you're a leader. I mean, that right there alone is a big teaching moment. It's like dig, 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 dig. Don't pitch, don't give your opinion. Once you have what you need, then you can guide them into a solution. But how do you find that what else when someone is giving you excuses? And we can talk about being a leader and we can talk about sales. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Are giving you excuses as to why they don't want to move forward. They're not telling you the truth. They're telling you something else to deviate the conversation, but there's something there that they're not telling you. And you probably have that often. How do you find that, what I call you, if you've read the book, how do you find that hidden objection? How do you find that that thing they don't want to tell you about? Do you have a certain strategy, or are you going to use my closing intelligence strategies? How do you do it?
Okay. Well, there are certain things you're supposed to do as
Hmm.
a credentialed professional coach, right? I
Okay.
am an International Coaching Federation credentialed coach. And the International Coaching Federation has a code of ethics. It has certain ways that we're supposed to handle our coaching clients, right? And so one of the things that we do, particularly if it's a standard executive coaching arrangement, is to identify three overriding goals. I want to be a better communicator, I want to be a better listener, I want to improve my delegation, right? Those are three goals. We talk about those. And then it's my responsibility to make sure that we're making progress on those goals. So for me, I can always come back and say, back to the original goals. All three of
Mm,
those goals are like communication goals. But if things get a little murky, I'll just bring it back. Because if we have to do an action plan at the end, which we'll hand into the supervisor, right? If we have to show something for ROI, they have to be able to say, oh, this is what my challenge was. This is what I've discovered about myself and what I'm going to do from this point on. And then they will hand that to their supervisor if they want to, and they'll have a partner there for accountability, or at least they'll see it for themselves. So it's really my responsibility. They tell me what it is they want to work on, and then every session is just sort of a piece of that, a piece of that, ball that we're trying to
mhm.
create, different strands. Plus, I am a good listener. I've developed that skill. I remember a lot of things that I don't even realize I remember. And I can pull from past sessions. Oh, but this reminds me of the time that you were involved with such and such. Do you see the parallels there? And I'll bring things together. I'll point out inconsistencies, ask questions to make them reflect on something that they're avoiding. I just spoke to somebody the other day who had a very sticky personal situation. Really, really sticky. A lot of shame connected to it. And so, me not reacting in a way that was in any way judgmental, just saying, okay, so this is the situation that you have here. What is it that you're hoping to get from coaching? Um, to understand how to
Yeah.
manage all this. And then they would avoid it and go into a completely different topic. I would point out the avoidance. I read between the lines. It's not the story itself that matters as much to me. It's the human behavior around the struggle of dealing with that I hone in on.
Right. There's some there that I think that I don't want people to miss that's really powerful. And we can use that for executive coaching. We can use it for leadership. We can use it for sales. We can use it for life. Like you said, that when they first start with you, you come up with three things that they'd like to work on. And then if they deviate from that, you can always bring it back. And I want to just stop there for a second, because that's something that I think we can really touch on, because human beings, if they want to avoid reality or taking an action that maybe it's painful, maybe it costs money, maybe it takes time, we have a tendency of just deviating to a different, like you said, like a different
A
path,
tangent. Yeah.
tangent, or giving an excuse to take us away from that.
Yes.
But by you having clarity from the beginning what they want, you can always say, "Look, I get that that's important to you, and yes, and you can be human, and you can say and I understand that that's important to you, and I understand, and that's a great path. But let's bring it back to why we're here. Let's bring it back to what's important to you. Let's bring it back to what your biggest challenge. Now that's a challenge, but it's not in your top three. So if we bring that into sales or into leadership or anything else, it goes back to asking the right questions. Like, you won't know what's really important to your client if you just go in there talking and pitching. You won't know. If you go into any conversation and you actually ask questions of where do you need help, and what's your biggest challenge, and what are you trying to solve, and tell me a little bit more about what you've done, like kind of what I teach people to do, they actually tell you what's important to them. They actually
Yes.
tell you why they're there. They actually tell you why they're meeting with you. So if they try, an employee, anyone, to send the conversation somewhere else, I think this is a great teaching, Moni. If you've asked the right questions from the beginning, it's very hard for them to use that to basically send you another direction, because you can always, just like you, Beth, bring it back. Say, okay, that's important, I get it, but let's bring it back to what we talked about at the beginning, one of the reasons that we're here, and then you can always have control of the conversation. And what I like most about this is really with this human aspect of it, is that if people tell you what their challenges are and then you show them the path, they can't tell you that you're manipulating them, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have told you what you're trying to help them with. So I just kind of love the way that you do it, because you're
Well,
not going.
thanks.
Yeah, well, think about it. Think
But
about
the
it.
other thing, one little nuance in what you're saying is, if the person avoids talking about the thing that they're uncomfortable with and they choose to go to another topic, there's something in that other topic that they feel more mastery over. They
Yes.
prefer that. So what I do is I try to weave them together. What are you doing in that situation that you may not be doing in this situation? How are those two in common? What strength are you using in that situation that might be applicable in the situation you'd prefer not to talk about?
Right.
I have to honor the defenses. Defense mechanisms are really, really good things. They protect us, they help us. So if one shows up and I poke it a little bit, if the reaction is like this, they're not ready. So I have to find a way to sort of get there sideways by being positive. I lean into the positive psychology, the idea that we grow more by developing our strengths to help us with the things we don't do as well versus trying to get better at the stuff we're just never going to be good at.
Right. Right.
So, so yes, I will bring them back to the main purpose of our coaching, but really our sessions can go a lot of different places. I am able to see the threads of how that might relate to what the ultimate
Right.
goal is.
Right. Let me tell the audience before we end, and I'm going to give you a chance in a
You got
second.
to end so quick.
No, I tell you, Beth, in a second of where you can point our audience to find out more about you, because I definitely want to do that. But here's what I want. Here's what I want to say about you, Beth. The reason that I know that Beth is very good at what she does. Like it's not that I have to receive executive coaching from you. I mean, you don't know this, but I have a lot of experience in the executive coaching, business coaching, entrepreneur. Like I have a lot of experience. That's just a different story. But the reality is that I know a lot of coaches that have so much information to give that they just do not know how to ask questions. And I think a lot of the times with executive coaches and business coaches, they want to talk and they want to talk and they want to give you their opinion, and Beth, is a pro because she's doing what really highly skilled, high level executive coaches do, which is ask the right questions. And she lives in the ask don't tell world. Like, ask the right questions so that I can really help you. And I just want everyone to understand that not every executive coach is like that. And I think when I say why Beth, why her solution is honestly because she digs deep. And only by digging deep can you really, really, change a life, impact a life, and really help them. So that was me giving you a really good commercial.
Well, thank you.
So because
Thank
I
you.
do, I do. I mean, I've sat in rooms where there's executive coaches in this, like, it's like, when are they going? Like, they have not asked a single question to these people. Like,
Yeah.
when are they going to shut up? And I've been in
It's
those
funny.
rooms, and it's very frustrating.
It's interesting you say that because one of the things I learned in coaching and I just love because of my background in psychology, you've heard of child psychology,
Right.
right? It ends at 20 years old. That whole thing. This is what happens to you between 0 and 18 to 20, and then you're on your own, right? Then life takes over. Well, what has been discovered through a lot of research is that there are definite stages of adult development that we go through. It doesn't end, and you have to develop through them. One of the stages is the expert. And a
Mm,
lot of people never get out of it. And those are the people who want to show you how smart they are, how much they know, how good they are, because that's what their ego is centered around. They feel like if they don't tell you everything that they're great at, you're not going to think they're good enough. You're not going to think they're the expert. Because if you're quiet, nobody knows what you know. So it's really a stage of development that people have to go through.
yeah.
And we're headed toward the quiet ego, which I think you have. You know what you're doing, you believe in your service, and you can stay there calmly and quietly while the dynamics evolve around you. And that's the quiet ego. When somebody says no to you, it's not because they're saying no to you. It's because they're afraid. It's more
Right.
of a reflection on who they are. And so being able to hold the silence is um, is a key skill.
That's a key skill.
Yeah.
It is a key skill. And, honestly, if you are looking for an executive coach, a business coach, or just talking to a salesperson or a leader or your boss, if they are that person that's just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, they're going
It's
to,
like you go,
yeah, they're talking. But those are the people, those are the kind of salespeople and the kind of business coaches that you probably need to run from. You need to really get some help. You need to have people they have that silence, that don't need, like, I could care less if you recognize me from social media, or you see me somewhere, or if my cover pictures in the cover. I could care less. Why? Because you're right. I just want to help. I just honestly want to help people, and I think that's what you're trying to do, and I absolutely love it. So, Beth, how can we connect with you? What do we need to do? Point us in the right direction to connect with you after listening to the show.
okay, www mastermancoaching.com. And that's my real name, Masterman, Masterman, or LinkedIn under Beth Masterman. That's where you can find me. And there
Awesome.
are links to get in touch with me through both of those. And I would be delighted to meet anybody who's listening who just wants to have a conversation about why they think coaching might be a good next step for them.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm assuming if they do that, they're going to talk to you. Like
Oh,
they're
yeah, it's me.
awesome,
It's me.
awesome. All right. So thank you, Beth, for being on the show. I think this was a great show. I mean, we
I
really
hope
talked about
so.
some really good things about just. I mean, it really is just about connecting with people, and that's what this is all about. You connect with people, you can really make an impact in their lives. Stop talking, start asking, and people are going to want
And
to do
listen,
business with you. So thank you for being on the show. Just stay on the line for a second. We'll connect after the show. But thank you, everyone. Just thank you for listening to Ask Don't Tell. We will see you on our next episode. You can always connect with me at oscarsubrats.com or closingintelligence.com. And I will see you next time on Ask Don't Tell.